Thank you guys for tuning in to the Untap Podcast. Welcome to the new year. And with this happy new year, we want to talk about a few new topics, games we want to revisit this year, and our gaming habits. With the gaming habits, we're talking about things we do as gamers. So, I myself, I feel like I'm an eclectic gamer. I play games and I get bored and I try a new game and I try a new game and I keep going until I finally settle on something I want to play all the way through. Mark, I feel like he's a bit of a completionist. He starts a game and he doesn't stop until he's done everything he can do.
Um,
And
I mean, not always, but I do definitely try for that. Absolutely.
yeah,
We don't have money to waste like that. So yeah, definitely.
so you just play it through until you've done everything you can do.
That's my game plan. Um, Chris is Chris. What are you?
Mine's kind of hard to describe. Um, Mike, I think you had called it the perfectionist
Yeah, I
the other
think
day.
you're the perfectionist. You might not get the newest games or like the most trending games, but you go to games that you know you can be great at.
Mhm. And I
You
think,
learn everything about them.
that harkens back, as back in the day I used to play a ton of fighting games, and Mike can tell you, shoot, my uncle could tell you that I could pick up a fighting game and know the game in the first half hour. It's just kind of how my mind works when it comes to gaming. So I kind of heads towards more getting deep into the game in the first hour or two. And if I can't do that, I kind of get discouraged from a game because I need to know kind of how to break this in a way. I'm a perfectionist in that way of I have to dig into the game, figure out the ins and outs as quickly as I can, and then go from there. Like, I don't start at the base level. I kind of jump in with the master combos and try to go from there instead of let's do a little 3-hit combo. No, I want to do the 27 hit, 1 kill combo at the start, and then I'll work my way back.
Yeah, I guess the difference between a perfectionist and a completionist is that I'm just trying to hit the level where the game says, "Okay, you're good. You don't need to be better at this."
So
Chris
I really
goes
like
and tries to be better than this.
Yeah.
I really like that Mark and Chris have totally different play styles,
Mm-hmm.
but in in the same right, like they both want to
We both
complete
want to master the
everything.
game.
Yeah, you want to be masters. Like Mark masters it in the sense he gets every achievement and he's completed every side quest that the developers intended there to be. And Chris understands the mechanics of a game.
Yeah.
And me, I just play games. I don't know what I'm doing. Honestly. I just
You're
start
wandering.
a game, and if I like it, I keep playing it. If I kind of like it, I'll play for a little bit, put it down, try something else. But you two, Mark, you just play a game till it's done, till you've finished every side quest, and Chris plays it until he knows all the mechanics of it.
And most of the time when I play a game like that, I don't finish it. I've finished very few games throughout my history of gaming. But it's kind of because I figure out what's either broken in the game or what is kind of a workaround in the game, and I get kind of bored with it. And I just kind of play a game and just dive into it for 100 hours in a month, and then I'm just kind of over it. It's weird.
I think that's part of my eclecticism. I do a bit of the same thing. I'll dive in and I'll play really strong, and I'll get into a couple of chapters, and then I kind of fade out, and I'm like, oh, I'll just play a chapter of this, and then I'll go back to that. And sometimes I never go back to a game.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say that I'm a jack of all trades. I'm becoming proficient in everything, and that's how I beat the game. Is I became proficient in this, and that allowed me to hit everything at kind of like a baseline. I would say Chris focuses on one thing. and goes so hard at it that nobody else will be able to beat him at that one thing. That's what makes him a perfectionist.
So I agree with that to an extent, except Mark, you don't play first-person shooters that often.
Yeah.
I can't anymore because by being a jack of all trades and never specializing in one thing, I'm not good at them. You know, like I play games for their storyline. I want to know everything that they're trying to tell me. I would say that as a completionist, that's the biggest part of it, is I want to know every facet about a story. And like part of my personality is that I truly do grow attached to the things that I learn about my story. I grow attached to the characters and the things that are happening to them. And I get so angry when it's done. And that's what allows me to be a completionist, because I don't want it to end. So I'm going to continue to hop around in this and get this part of it and this part of this and this part of it. And like, yeah, sure, eventually at the end of the day, there's nothing left. The whole story has been told, and everything you can know about the story has been told. And at that point, I've lost all interest. I want, like, the first game I played was that I truly platinumed, where I went, I enjoyed platinuming this game, was I can't remember the name of it. It's Second Son is the subtitle. Well, Infamous.
Yeah.
Infamous 2, Second Son. And I got to the end of the game, and at the end of the game, once you get that platinum trophy and you do the final thing that you are allowed to do, the character stops, turns, and breaks the fourth wall by looking at you, and he's like, okay, there's nothing left. Go do something else. Like, you're wasting your time now. And I was like, oh, you're right, I am. And that kind of like, what?
What is the oldest game you remember playing?
I think we talked about this in another podcast, didn't we?
We did, but go back to it. I want to go back to it real quick.
Oldest game I remember playing, aside from Tetris and Mario Brothers?
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, so Final Fantasy VII. Do we know the release date on that?
97.
97, 98-ish.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
So that's good. That's great.
96?
Between like 96 and 2000, which is like really freaking pushing it, because I know it was out before
97, early 97.
So early 97, this game came out. I remember 98. I remember Final Fantasy VIII being out when I got Final Fantasy VII. I remember deliberating between the two.
So the first game you platinumed was an
Final
Infamous
Fantasy
game.
VII.
Well, no, because there weren't any trophies or achievements.
True. Yeah, the first official trophy given to me was Infamous Second Son.
I remember walking over to your house one day, and your Uncle Beefy gave you a Super Nintendo. No, it wasn't even a Super. It was a NES.
Was it an NES?
It was an NES, and we sat there and played Jaws for hours.
Oh my god, I remember that.
Like hours and hours.
But we didn't platinum that game. We didn't platinum that.
You
that
couldn't
game...
platinum a Nintendo Entertainment System game, Mark.
No,
There
but
were
you could.
unending games.
So that would be Chris's thing then. Chris, you must be heavily influenced by these unending games, because that's what you like, right?
Not really.
Like those little fights where you can hop in and.
Not really, because the first game I remember like trying to really dive into was a game I still have yet to beat, and that was Super Ghouls and Ghosts on the SNES.
Wait, what was it?
Super Ghouls and Ghosts on the Super.
Ghosts?
It's Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Yeah.
That's funny, because that was the next game that I was gonna ask about. Because I remember, I like vividly remember playing Jaws at Mark's house.
Yep.
And I vividly remember playing Super Ghouls and Ghosts with you. Because it's one of those side-scrolling platformers.
It's a side-scrolling.
Super intense.
Super intense.
Wait.
Super difficult.
Are we? Why are we reminiscing about past game? Is my question.
Because it's
Where
how
are
we.
we going with this?
It's how we got our start. It's how. I see where Mike was going with this. This is kind of the origin of how we play games.
Okay.
And why we play them this way. Yeah.
Cool. I wasn't seeing the connection.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So Super Ghouls and Ghosts, it's a side scroller platformer that's super difficult. It's a gaming series that's super difficult in general. But I remember diving into that game, and I could always get to the third floor without getting hit, is as far as I could ever get without getting hit. And for me, that was good enough. That was kind of the pinnacle in that game. If I could get this far with never getting hit, I never beat the game. It's one of the hardest games to beat. But I think that's where I really got my start. And I know later, kind of college years, where I repicked that up. And that was with when Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out. So I'm a huge fighting game fan. And that game just blew up when it came out. But I remember vividly, my friends would come over. It did, because they did the ultimate version and did all that to it. But I remember playing against our buddy Max. I would literally let him pick my team, and I would still beat him. I was like, dude, just pick. I don't care who I play as. Because I would play that game 4, 5... Yeah, like Tony Hawk. It was the Tony Hawk rating.
Like, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I think, is probably one of the greatest fighting games ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is an even, balanced fighting game.
Yeah.
And MVC3, like,
it's really not.
It almost gets to that button mashing, like, just smash the buttons and you have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like games like that.
Yeah, Mark, you don't seem like a fighting game fan.
No, I'm not. There's, to me, like I said, it's about the story. And I enjoy role-playing games. I enjoy RPGs. Like, give me Skyrim would be a perfect example, where you can just go and get lost in the world and play the game, and there's more story always to be. There's a world building around it, because I don't want the story to end, and in those kinds of settings, they don't end. Although your main storyline may change, there's 5 other stories. Like, there's so much more going on. Or like Dragon Age Inquisition, I enjoy that because, I mean, you can pick up a random dagger in the game, just randomly found on the field, and it has a history to it. I mean, a legitimate world-building history built into it. And that's fantastic. I like games like that. I would say that my completionist is built from being poor, without money to go buy a new game constantly to try and to find something that you like. You go back to the things you do like and you beat the hell out of them. And that's my gaming attitude.
And Mark, do you have... What's the game that you've kind of gotten into? I know you did the Uncharted trilogy recently.
Oh yeah, so last year, 2017, I want to say I started this in 2016. It took me about 6 months. I went through and I platinumed the entire Uncharted series. Uncharted 1, 2, and 3. I am like 4 trophies away from platinuming the 4th one. Okay, so the Uncharted series is a game that back in 2016 I started working on platinuming. There are 4 games in the series. It probably took me about 6 to 7 months to platinum the first 3 games. And then I got like 3 or 4 trophies for the 4th one. I still need to go back and finish that. I don't want to get too much into the Uncharted series. I don't want to talk about it too much because I'm trying to convince my brother to do a mini episode for us where we get together and talk about the Uncharted, because it's a series we both really love, where we could go through and talk about each game. So I don't want to get too much into it. But that would be that's close to a first-person shooter.
What? No,
not really. It's third person.
But you can be first person. You can change that. That's a mode in the game that you can be first person instead of third person.
But why did you pick that one, Mark, to kind of choose to platinum?
Because Naughty Dog. I am a huge fan of Naughty Dog. The company itself, I love everything they do. They did the Crash Bandicoot series. They did the Ratchet and Clank series. They did the Uncharted series. They did the Last of Us. I mean, everything that they put out to me is gold. They can do no wrong as a company so far, in my opinion.
So, I would like to cut in and say the game I really do want to revisit is The Last of Us, because they are making a Last of Us 2.
Yes, I was thinking about that as well, about going back and playing that. I mean, I have a lot on my plate, but I'll probably play that again before I buy The Last of Us 2.
See, and that's one I've never played. I played the first hour. That's it.
It's kind of scary, and it's hard to get any trophies. I think I have 2 trophies in the entire game, and that's just for beating it on the normal difficulty setting.
It's a great game, though.
Oh, it's fantastic!
The story is amazing.
Yeah, I will go back and platinum that game at some point, because they are Naughty Dog and they are amazing. I love.
So here's
Naughty
the
Dog.
problem with platinuming.
Platinum.
Here's the problem with getting a platinum trophy for The Last of Us. So, I noticed that several of the trophies require the online play.
Yeah.
And if the online community isn't that great, you're not going to get the trophies.
That's not true.
If you want to, no. If you want to platinum the game, you have to get the online trophies. There's not that many people playing it.
Well, but there will be. As soon as
there's not. There's really not, though.
But when the second one comes out, it will blow up. People will go back and play it.
That's what killed Command and Conquer, and it killed a lot of games, dude. A lot of people stop playing games because there is no online community. How many people do you know currently playing Modern Warfare 2 or Black Ops 1?
I mean, I don't know anybody because I'm not part of that community.
Currently.
But look
because
at Gears of War.
Jacked up.
But look at Gears of War. People, that game has been out for so long, and there's still a huge community. They have tournaments. They have stuff going on. There might be tournaments.
What are you talking about? I don't know anybody still playing Gears of War.
I do. There are 2 guys. There are 2 guys that I work with that play it still.
So there is a difference between the people playing them. I don't think are playing on community servers. They're playing private servers. And so therefore trophies and achievements and all of that have been disabled. I don't think there are enough people playing them to earn trophies and achievements on community servers for it to matter. You can try and play Modern Warfare 2 or Gears of War, but they're private servers.
Yeah, and see, that's one of the problems I have with fighting games in this day and age, is that if you are going for a platinum trophy, it's, play 1,000 online matches. Well, if you get the game, a year in, 6 months in, whatever, and the community is just gone. But yeah, that's the problem with kind of fighting games, is that you have to play 1,000 matches for most fighting games online now, which is great and fine if you get the game when it comes out, but if you can't afford to buy a brand new game every other month, it's okay, I'll buy, the new Mortal Kombat 5-6 months after it's out, and the community's just gone. And that's the hard part. It makes it difficult to go back to platinum fighters for me. I can't go back to platinum any of them, really.
Well, and that's honestly though, that's just the risk you run, man. You're playing that style of game. You run the risk of being unable to platinum it, I don't play those kinds of games. I play games that are role playing. It's about me and my participation. That's what I like.
Well, I think that's why I'm drawn to, in the same kind of sense, a game like Slay the Spire or a game like Enter the Gungeon, because it's just you in the game. It's get better at the game on your own time, Mike's played Enter the Gungeon a few times. It's a difficult game, but that's one of the games where I've played it so much now that I can walk people through. This weapon's good in this situation. This weapon's good in that situation, and just kind of go from there.
I explained my gaming habit. Chris, you explained yours. Mike, did you explain your gaming habit?
Of playing lots of games until I find one that I really click with.
Where did that? Because me and Mark kind of
like,
where that originated from.
Games you click with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. Okay, so I can talk about that.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not seeing like you're just saying you go out and buy a bunch of games and random like but like are you buying like role playing, first person shooters, horror, like what games are attracting you?
All right, so let me kick back to like we used to rent video game systems. Like I
never did that.
I know. Weird family where we rented video game systems. And I was clearly the youngest. And
your sister's younger than you.
that's true. My sister didn't play video games.
Yeah. No.
Oh, okay. You're like, I'm clearly the youngest.
So we had, like, my dad would rent a video game system, and he'd have a couple people who lived with us or whatever, and me, and we would play, and they were games like Sonic the Hedgehog or Killer Instinct or Donkey Kong Country, games that came with a video game console. So they'd rent them from Blockbuster or whatever, and those were the first kind of memories I have of playing video games. Was just playing whatever games we had for a short period of time. And it, like, that kind of stuck with me in my game playing style. So when I finally had my own video game console, when I had my own Super Nintendo, I just wanted to play a lot of different games. I didn't beat games. I didn't want to finish a game. I just wanted to play a game for a little while, and then the next time I turned on the Super Nintendo, I wanted to play a new game. And then when I got a PlayStation, I'd play a bunch of games, and then I would remember my dad coming home from the pawn shop with like 5 or 6 PlayStation 1 games, and I'd play them all for a little bit. I fucking played Silent Hill for like 3 hours and was terrified.
I have that. That was our game. Yeah,
I remember,
definitely. I would say that's our first joint gaming experiences.
It was
the first one.
It was because I remember my dad was playing Silent Hill, and my mom was in the kitchen cooking dinner. I have no idea where my sister was, but I remember watching my dad play Silent Hill. My mom was making dinner, and I made it, like, I was watching my dad play, and we made it to the part where there was the, like, weird body strung up in the alleyway.
Yeah, by the way, podcast listeners, if you haven't played the original Silent Hill, one of the more creepiest games ever created, in my opinion. I never beat that game. That game forced me to walk away because I was too scared to actually finish playing it. In the first 15 minutes of the game, you are attacked multiple times. I think one of them, aren't you attacked by little blood-covered babies? Isn't that what happens in the alley?
Yes, you are, in the school.
That you're walking down this alley and it slowly gets darker and creepier, and you turn a corner and there's like wheelchairs tipped over with the wheels spinning and it's covered in blood, and you're just like, what the hell happened? And then you hear the siren, the Silent Hill siren of a bomb raid going off, and then the game flashes at you, and then all of a sudden there's this body crucified on this fence in front of you. There's blood everywhere, and I was
a body crucified on the fence.
That and I was my 8 years old. That terrified me.
So anyways, I remember playing lots of different games. Like, we played Super Mario Brothers, Tetris, all kinds of Nintendo games. And then the first PlayStation game I remember playing and watching my dad play was Silent Hill. And then I remember playing Silent Hill at Mark's house, and we both got fucking terrified and threw the game in Mark's locker that he had in his room.
Yeah, I had a locker. A high
And
school
I also
locker.
played, like, I remember playing games at our friend Philip's house and playing Super Smash Brothers at Chris's house. And so I never got really super attached to a video game until I had my very own video game console in my own room. And so like up until I was in almost high school, I never had my own game console, and I just shared a game console. So I couldn't get really into games. And I think that might be why I just like bounce a lot between video games.
Well, with that
Just
being
that initial habit.
with that being said, though, Mike, what's one game you always want to go back to, though, or haven't had
So
a chance to
game-
lately?
It's not even a console game, but the game 1943.
I prefer 1942 myself, but you know.
1942, 1943, whatever. Chris, I know you know what it is.
I know.
Mark, I don't know if you've
I
played
have no idea. I have no idea what that is. I know the book, 1987.
Yeah, not the same.
No, not even close.
No, not similar, guys.
So 1943, is that what?
Yeah,
it is, Chris?
it's both. Yeah, 42 and 43.
So they are.
Wait, the one game has 2 titles?
Two different titles, same base game essentially.
Okay.
It's an arcade cabinet.
I don't know what that is either.
That doesn't even
So-
sound right.
It is a cabinet, which means it is a
So, Mark, have you been to an arcade?
yes.
Yes.
So you know the machines you put quarters into and play inside of an arcade.
Okay, you don't have to be a smart ass. I know what that is, but when you say
That's a cabinet.
That's a
An
cabinet.
arcade
That's that's an arcade game cabinet. That's what it is. That's what they're
Oh.
called. Like, wasn't trying to be a smartass. I was trying to let you get there.
When I was really little, I played a lot of cabinet games.
I did not.
So, do we want to take a few minutes to go back to games we want to revisit in the
Well-
new year?
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
I haven't talked about any games that I want to visit.
Yeah.
I have a whole list I want to talk to you guys about.
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so games I want to revisit. Now, when you guys said this, I was kind of stuck on what you meant by that. So I kind of just thought of every game that I would revisit, and then in different contexts. Why would I revisit it? So there are games I'm going to revisit because I have to get the Platinum Trophy for it. That's my decision. I will be revisiting the Uncharted series. I will be revisiting the Kingdom Hearts series. I plan on platinuming all of them. I plan on, I plan on revisiting these games that have come out since the PS4 came out. Things I can go back and play and do that. But then there's also games that mean something to me in my life. And I would go back and revisit them simply for the sheer joy of revisiting them. Command and Conquer series is one of them. I think that as long as I have a console that can possibly play a Command and Conquer game, I will play it. Because I love the gameplay of the Command and Conquer series. Do you guys know what the gameplay
I
is? Mike?
love
Mhm.
Red Alert too.
Yeah,
Chris, did you ever play Command and Conquer? Do you know?
I
that game?
did, but I never got big into it. It was a game
So
I played. But...
I fell in love with the story first because I'm very story oriented. In the Command and Conquer series, our first introduction is called Command and Conquer Tiberium Dawn, and no, not Tiberium Dawn. I'm sorry. Gold. I don't think it was anything. I think it was just Command and Conquer. And you're introduced to a world where there is a third world power, called the Brotherhood of Nod, and then there is a very UN type power called GDI, the Global Defense Initiative, and it's these two sides basically fighting over the world. Nations belong to these military powers. The Brotherhood of Nod is kind of like a religious order, built around Cain, who is the prophet of Nod. Cain is like their living prophet. They worship Tiberium. Tiberium is this substance that fell to Earth in an asteroid, and it's killing off the whole planet and absorbing the nutrients from the soil, causing mass radiation. It's like this god substance that is plaguing the Earth and wiping out all possible life. And it doesn't start off that serious. It starts off as just like this random resource you collect in the game. But then you get to Tiberium's sun, and like 70% of the world is uninhabitable because this Tiberium has mutated the world around it. And you're fighting it's the GDI versus Nod in 40 years into the future. And then they go into Tiberium Wars, which is further in the future again, and they introduce that Cain, no matter how many times he dies, he comes back, which is amazing. There's a whole mythos about the game series, but I would revisit that game series because it's just beautiful. It's a beautifully well-written story. And then they did a spin-off called Red Alert, and Red Alert is it's the same game mechanics, but the world setting is different. In Red Alert, Albert Einstein creates a time machine, goes back in time, and kills Hitler. One of those famous "would you do this if you had a time machine" questions, and that's what this game tackles. And Einstein goes back in time, he kills Hitler, and it creates a paradox. And this paradox is that we're thrown into a new time stream where Hitler never rose to power. Without Germany rising to power to threaten the world again during World War II, Stalin has no check. So the Russians are running rampant across the continent, and it's the Allies versus the Axis, basically. Not the Axis being, it's the Allies versus the Soviets, and it's a world dominating battle between them. But there's no mystical substance that's taking over the world. It's just all politics. So I would revisit that series, absolutely. And then I'm going to revisit Final Fantasy VII because they're going to do the remake. So I have to go back and try to platinum the original before I can worry about the remake. Mike, Chris, what games are you guys going to go back into?
Well, for me, it's twofold. I want to play and go back to a game I missed out on, and that's going to be Bayonetta. I love the God of War series, and everybody's told me it's real similar to God of War, obviously with a female protagonist instead. It kind of has the absurdity of it, but it's never something I've never played.
That sounds interesting.
It's gotten decent reviews, and it's gotten a sequel that came out pretty well, but Nintendo owns it or owns the rights to it or some sense of that, so they can't put it out on every console. But the first one's available kind of console wide, so I'm gonna go back and play that. And then, like you, Mark, I'm gonna have that Final Fantasy itch coming up with 7 coming out again, but instead of 7, I'm gonna go back to Final Fantasy 9. That's one we grew up playing, so it's definitely one I'm gonna go back to. I haven't played it in 10-15 years. I haven't played it since it came out, so it'll be pretty much a brand new game to me.
So guys, for our podcast listeners, me being a completionist as I am, one of the things that I like to do is I compete with both Chris and Mike in my own head. There's no stakes. On our PSN network, our PlayStation Network accounts, I compete with them on scores. Mike right now is a level 15. I think he's 40% of the way through level 15, which pisses me off to no end. I think Chris is sitting at 14. I think I'm ahead of him. And I've been for the last 2 years, I have been completely focused on gaining trophies in games, being the completionist, trying to completely beat the game, simply to beat Mike in the PlayStation Network trophy ranking. And no matter what I fucking do, this guy is always ahead of me. I have beaten 6 games in the last 2 years, platinum them. There's nothing left, not a small amount. And I can't catch up to him at all on the ranking. It's fucking stupid. It's every time I look on there, he's gained like another 12% or some bullshit like that. I don't know how he's doing it. I think he's paying somebody to play on his account.
Fuck you.
I know. I think with your work, somebody is on your account constantly beating games.
Fuck
'cause
you.
It's not possible for you to constantly be so
Dude.
far ahead, man.
No, this goes back to like the habits we have with playing games. You stick to a game until you're done. And I play a game and I get to a point where I'm like, nah, screw it, I'm gonna go on to the next one. And so I get more trophies and achievements than you because I play more games.
I get that, but still, dude, I've spent the last 6 months completely focused on getting trophies. Not beating games, getting trophies, and I've still fallen further behind from you.
How many different games do you think you have played in those 6 months?
6 months? 5 solid different games.
How many games in 6 months have you played?
I just told you that.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
I've played like
Oh,
4
yeah,
just for
like
the record.
5 different games in the last month.
See, like, yeah, you have a doppelganger fucking around. Like, where do you get the time?
No.
Where do you get the time? You are a salaried manager at a retail store. Where do you get the time to be 80% ahead of me on the rankings? Fuck
Well,
off.
see, I was up until 3 days ago. I was working 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. And so at 1 a.m., I would come home, and my dear, lovely Mary would be fast asleep.
Playing your account and your
No,
game.
no, 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 no. She would not play games. She would be well asleep, and I would play a game for 2 or 3 hours. And in 2 or 3 hours of playing a game that you haven't played before, you can probably get 3 or 4 bronze trophies and maybe 1 or 2 silvers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's
And
fair.
if you like that game, you play it again the next night, and you get a couple more bronze trophies.
Yeah, the games I
And
tend to
maybe
play,
a gold.
the games that I tend to play are games that are like, we have 200 plus hours of gameplay here.
I know, and then I sent you South Park, The Fractured Butthole, for Christmas.
Which I get it now. I get what they're referencing. They're referencing the Civil War. They
Yeah,
are fractured, but they're whole. They're together against the outside, but they're fractured. They have internal strife. I get it now.
It's one nation. However, they are divided.
Mike, this topic was really designed for you.
No,
how
it
many
wasn't.
games- Listen,
No,
It really wasn't.
No.
Listen. How many games are unwrapped right now in your game stack?
Unwrapped?
Yeah, they still have
Or,
plastic wrap
like,
on them.
So wrapped.
Okay, so games that still have cellophane on them.
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
A lot.
Read off the names of those games.
Really?
Yeah, because I want you guys. Not a lot is not enough. We're talking about games we have to go back and replay. Mike has between $40 and $60 games sitting on his rack that he's never unwrapped. So I think Mike has the most to go back and revisit in this
All right,
topic.
so
I think
have
Mike has the most.
So I have the Valkyrie Chronicles or something. I don't know, Mark. It's hard to tell.
Okay, okay. You have a lot to revisit.
I do. I have a PS3 JRPG game. I think it's Valkyrie Chronicles. It's still sealed. I have the Hitman collection. It's still sealed. I have all of the Skyrim and Elder Scrolls Online games. So Elder Scrolls Online and Morrowind expansion, those are still sealed. I have a Call of Duty game that's still sealed. I have a Final Fantasy game that is still sealed. I have a lot of games that are still in the cellophane.
So let's just roughly say $50 a game.
Yeah, that's fair, because I have this problem where I pay ticket price for a game and then I don't play it.
So some of those games are coming out at $40. Some are coming out at $60.
Yeah.
I would easily say that, Mike, you have $300 of games just sitting there wrapped up from what you just mentioned.
Probably. So speaking of,
mind-blowing.
one of the Let's Plays that we have going on our YouTube channel is Final Fantasy 15. I bought Final Fantasy 15 on day one, the release, and I played it for a few hours, and I put it back on my shelf, and I didn't play it again until I started streaming it for our channel. So if you are watching our Let's Play, that is really my first time playing through the game. And the point we are at now in the game is my first time experiencing it. So I want to go back to games that we want to revisit in the new year.
Okay.
Because we are in the new year, and Happy New Year's. And I don't know exactly how far back in time we actually go to revisit new games. But
what do you mean by that?
So, Mark, what is the last game you replayed recently?
I'm. That's a replay and not like a first time I played it.
Yeah, I think
the Kingdom Hearts series. I'm working on the
recent
Kingdom
replay.
Hearts series. Kingdom Hearts. Guys, if you don't know what Kingdom Hearts is, then you're missing out on one of the greatest stories ever told. Kingdom Hearts is a cooperative play. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Kingdom Hearts is a converging of two different game styles. You're stuck with Sony came in and said, "Hey Disney, let us use your characters," and Disney said, "That's fine. You have to use them in the way we say." So it's a game that is heavily based on Final Fantasy type characters and Final Fantasy characters themselves. Like you see them in the setting of Kingdom Hearts, as if all Final Fantasy worlds are connected in the same multiverse as Disney. And that's what Kingdom Hearts is it's like a multiverse creation between Disney and Sony. And you follow Sora, a young Keyblade master, and you follow his intro into the story where two of his best friends are taken from him when his world is destroyed by the Heartless. And he goes on a journey to find them, and he runs into Goofy and Donald from Disney, and they become his friends, and the three of you travel across the many different Disney and Final Fantasy worlds that exist, and you battle against the Heartless and try to find your friends. It's a story about conquering the weakness in your heart. It's a story about the dark side and the light side fighting. The Heartless being the dark side, our protagonist being the light side. So it's kind of got this Star Wars type overall theme of the Jedi. You know, you're wielding keyblades, fighting across the universe for righteousness and goodness. So it's fantastic. If you haven't played the series, then you're completely missing out, and you get that little childhood nerd thing where you're playing a game everybody agrees is cool, and you're playing as Donald Duck, and that's fun. You know, like, who doesn't want to play as Donald Duck and Goofy? If you don't, then you're denying the child. So okay, guys, thank you for tuning in to this episode. We talked about, you know, our gaming habits, what happened in our lives that influenced us towards our gaming habits. the games we're looking forward to covering in the year of 2018. We'll be bringing a lot of this to you streamed through our Twitch account, the Untap. You can find us on there. Our videos will be on YouTube as well on our channel, the Untap. If you have questions, comments, concerns, if you want to throw in your own 2 cents for our episode, if you have your own gaming habits you want to talk about, feel free to hit us up on Twitter at official Untap on the Twitter, right? Is Chris? That's what our Untap
Yeah, it's
is?
official Untap. You got it right.
Official Untap. All right. Talk to you guys next episode.